Where's Laura?
Good afternoon, Laura.
Hello, Laura.
Right, Chair, we're ready to go live.
Okay, right, let's go live then, shall we? Good afternoon, everybody. Prynawn da. Welcome to the Democratic Services meeting held in January. So the first item on the agenda is to receive apologies. Are there any apologies, Nicola? I think I know the answer because I've just asked you, but better ask you in the meeting as well.
We'll record apologies from Councillor Maria Stevens.
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you. And moving on, do any members know of any other apologies before we move on? No. Okay, right. Moving on to the second item then, which is declarations of interest. Are there any interests to be declared? Excellent. Right. Moving on to the third item then, which are the minutes of the last meeting, and they've been circulated. Is it your wish that they would be signed as a true and accurate record of the previous meeting?
Can I speak? Sorry.
Certainly, Jill.
Sorry.
Councillor Bond.
So, thank you. On page 3, there was a matter arising. Will that come up in the meeting, please? About the voting for the seminar, whether we're going to have a seminar.
I think that's on the agenda, isn't it?
It is on the agenda.
Is it not?
Okay, is it?
Yeah, I'll give you an update on that
Yeah.
now if you like, Jill.
Where's that on the agenda? Sorry, I can see minutes previous meeting.
No, it's not down for this agenda.
No.
I think I had half the members responded to the survey, and the overall desire from members was to have a seminar on it, even though the responses to the survey at the minute don't look like we're going to be anywhere near a 2/3 majority that's needed to actually make the change to that voting system. The only thing I haven't been able to do yet is put a date in the diary for that seminar to take place. But given the feedback from members in this committee last time that there was no desire to change the voting system, the responses to the survey suggest that, and it needing a 2/3 majority to go to council. I don't think there's a massive rush with it for us to get it in the diary, but it'll be good to update members on the processes behind everything and just share that information with them. So I'll put a date together and the seminar will take place, but I don't think we need to come back here. But carry on, Jill.
Yeah, can I speak, please? Thanks, Chair. I think the thing was that some of us aren't fully aware of what the implications are, and therefore you couldn't actually make a decision that whether it be 2/3 or not, because until everyone's aware of what what it means and what it can do, you can't possibly predict whether, or no one could possibly predict whether we get the 2/3 at the end.
No.
So that's why we said seminar, if you remember.
No, we said we'd survey everybody, and the majority of us seminar. So I'll get that.
We can't predict that everybody will vote to, we wouldn't get the 2/3 until after we've had the seminar.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
look forward to seeing that when that's booked then. Thank you.
We'll await the seminar then. Excellent. Right. Are there any other matters arising from the minutes that need to be clarified or whatever? Right. So we're all happy to sign them as an accurate record. Do we sign records, the minutes these days, Nicola, just as a point of information, or are they just assumed as a product of this meeting that those minutes are approved?
Yeah, I'll mark them in the minutes that they've been approved, but then when you're next in the office, I'll speak to you about the paper copies.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Next item then is the discussion about the trips. Let's get back to the agenda. John, we'll,
Thank you, Chair.
thank you.
No, I'm brought a paper on this. It's more an open discussion to start the ball rolling. You'll remember, or you might remember, back in the early in the induction process, one of the items that we had planned for you was a sort of a bus trip around the county, just to go and visit some key sites, strategic sites, etc. Understand some of the differences between the wards, between the north and south of Monmouthshire, etc. That unfortunately got put on hold, and then we had a discussion at the last meeting around picking that back up. So I'm invited along to this meeting. Is Dawn here?
Yeah.
Hi,
So-
John. Hi, everyone.
I don't.
Hi. Yeah, so I was initially asked to do this when you all came on board. I set the ball rolling. Unfortunately, my dad was struck with a bleed on the brain, so I had to take a couple of weeks off. So it got handed over, I think, to somebody else. Anyway, it kind of got lost in transit, no problem. But if you wanted me to sort that for you and to organise, I'm more than happy to go down that route again. I used to do it before COVID with new inductees, new employees of Monmouthshire County Council. So we'd have an all-day induction with Paul and you know what it is to be a public servant, and then day 2 would be a bus trip around the county. So if I just give a brief overview of it, we start at Mega. Obviously, Mega now is being used for other purposes. It's the Ukrainian centre now, so we would still start from there because the bus is easier to get us all on. Then we'd kind of maybe visit a school. This is all in the south to start with. We'd visit care provision, one of our care provisions, go on to see some of our lovely tourist information places, a Shire Hall, a museum, one stop, you know, our hubs. Then we'd go up to Abergavenny to the Lanfoy Centre, pop back down then to County Hall, which you're very familiar with now, I would imagine. But, you know, obviously new inductees are not so, new employees, some people don't tend to go to us. So, but I can mix it and change it. I know that I was in talks with Tracy Thomas last time about a leisure centre, you know, the Monmouth Leisure Centre where we'd have lunch then there. So it's really the ball's in your court if you want to do that. It is a really good thing to, if you're based in the south or if you're based in the north, to see the demographics of how huge we are as a you know, as a council. And yeah, it's always had really good feedback. So it's up to you, back to you, people, if you think that is. Yes, Jill, you've got your question. Oh, you're on mute. Jill,
Sorry,
you're on.
I forgot to put my hand up on the thing. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay, it's all right.
That sounds brilliant, really useful. I don't know whether we ought to look at the cost. I mean,
Yes,
we're all
and
getting more experienced and to do with the budget, whether we ought to be looking at the cost and the
Yes.
implications, and also how you choose which things, which items to stop at or whatever. So
Yeah.
it sounded wonderful, but I guess there's so many of us, and
We
we need to not be seen to be out on jollies
absolutely.
when if it's not a jolly. I know it's an information gathering thing, but you know, we need to be perhaps
Yeah,
thinking
I
about.
absolutely agree. So the cost would be the bus and the food. We could eliminate the food and we could all go to Wetherspoons and buy our own, or somewhere nice in Monmouth. What do you think, John? Because I know the cost would be just the bus.
I was going to come in there, Dawn. We'd already factored in the costs for this as part of the induction program and post-election stuff anyway, because like I say, we
Okay.
in for last year. So we'll meet that within my budget. The cost isn't huge. We use our own
No.
transport services anyway to get us around. So not a problem on that side.
Okay. Penny?
Yeah, I think this is a very important part of induction, and you know, cost aside, if it's just the bus, I mean, or sandwiches or whatever, I think it's really important. Having said that, I don't think it needs to include those who've been here for quite some years. So although it'd be very interesting, so you could cut the cost by having a minibus or two, you know, or smaller coach or whatever, because I really don't think it needs to include some of the older ones, shall I say, or more experienced ones. Don't want to upset David. Okay.
Very thoughtful of you, Penny.
Armand, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, sorry. I mean, I think I disagree with Penny. I think it's important that some of the more established, you know, I'm going to throw in Louise now. Louise will be offended as well, just to offend everybody. More established councillors to kind of mix in with the new ones, really, because we don't really, you know, since May, you know, we don't really know each other particularly well, do we? So, and I'd go anyway. You know, I'd try and make Penny come along just to see her in Wetherspoons. That would be that would be
You
something
usually
else.
sing on the
I'd go
bus,
for that.
don't you, Armand?
All right.
I agree. I think the last time councillors went on it gosh, it's got to be about 10 years plus, I think.
Yeah,
I-
it is.
I never did. I
went on
was before your time, yeah. So I think it was a long time ago. So yeah,
There was one
obviously,
about
sure.
10 years ago, certainly, because I went one during my first year.
Yeah,
on
and
the
Yeah,
I did.
it's got to be,
Yeah.
hasn't it, about that
Yeah.
time. I can't remember one being done since. So yeah, the floor's
2012.
open really into suggestion. I think it may be a Monday or Tuesday. How does that sound? Because obviously things wind down for Friday. So is that a good day for most people?
It wouldn't
Okay.
be for me, but there again, I'm not
Should
the
we go
only one
middle
there.
of the week, David? Should we go Wednesday?
Thursday would be good. But I know that many meetings take place on a Thursday, so.
Yes.
I think just
Can
in
I
terms
ask
of,
that you look at the diary?
that's what I was just going to suggest. In terms of dates, we can look at the diary and stuff like
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. That's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Office.
One of
So-
the- sorry, Dawn. One of the issues we were having, I think, when we were looking at this back in August or July time, I think, was the time of the day, and
Okay.
councillors who sort of work in the day and available to go on it, but want to go on it. So then we started talking about, do we split it up by political groups, so they have a bus each for a group on certain days, there's 2 groups, etc. Are we content that it's just one bus for all members on a day that's most suitable
Yeah.
for everybody, and it'll be during the day to maximise obviously the time that we can
And
be
the
able to-
services that'll be open during the day, you know, the schools, you know, the care provision, things like that, best place, unless we did it on a weekend. No, the schools wouldn't be open, so that's a silly
No,
idea,
no,
Dawn.
no.
And it's not good for people with children either.
No. Just thinking out loud. I tried to be all professional and now I've let myself down.
I think it's an excellent idea, and I think cross-party is not a party political thing in any shape or form, and it will be really useful for us all to know each other if we don't, and also have a complete understanding of the county in all its guises. So I think it's excellent.
Okay. I noticed Louise had her hand up.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think it would be better to be open to all councillors, because obviously there are dates when people can and can't make things. I mean, you know, obviously I go on occasions to Chepstow Leisure Centre, but I haven't been to the Monmouth Leisure Centre, because when they had an outing previously on that, I got other things on, so I couldn't make it. So
Okay.
I think it should be open, you know, in terms of the councillors, and it will obviously be limited by the numbers who can make it on that particular day anyway.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Jill?
Sorry, I was going to say something facetious then. I would say it'd be good to go to Monmouth and we could see what we could have had. Sorry, that was wrong. What you've said so far sounds brilliant. During the day, everyone invited.
Right.
And then I guess if you've got lots of can't make replies, then obviously change the date off. Hopefully.
Yeah. Oh,
Sounds brilliant.
I do a
Thank
mock
you.
up in my car, drive everywhere around. Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. So we'll get that underway. Probably end of February after half term, maybe when the schools are back, and we can get it. And I can get all the logistics done of that, John.
I was going to say, don't leave it. You and me there will go off in the background then, and
Brilliant.
place, pick a date, and we'll share that information with members.
Right.
It might be helpful as well, perhaps, Dawn, if we, by email, just outside the committee, just share a list of the sites we're going to visit.
Great. I got all that. Yeah.
And then if we need to tailor it or adjust any of those 1 or 2 sites, perhaps in advance of going, then we can do that away from the meeting. But as long as we've got a structure of how we're going to do it.
Yeah. And everybody last time when I done it, all the people were really pleased and happy to host us. So, you know, I'll just reconnect with yourself and them, John, and get that going. Bring your song sheets and your sweets, and we'll have a lovely time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's nice meeting you all, and I look forward to our day out.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Dawn.
you. Thank you
Is
for
there
your
any
time.
sense in, sorry, I appreciate that delaying it is not a particularly good idea, but in terms of weather, is it better to leave it possibly later in the spring? I don't know whether that's a sensible idea or not, but
February can be pretty rough.
We,
Token March.
yeah. Yeah, well, we can have a
Just
chat
a
with
thought.
John and,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
thank you.
perhaps we'll look then towards the end of March. Let's get the budget and full
Yeah.
council meetings out of the way, and that's going to be a pretty busy period early March. So yeah, let's look at what's good towards the end of March and early
Perfect. Okay, look forward to seeing you on the bus trip.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, Dawn.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Right, from one issue that we're trying to get people together, now let's see if we can get some consensus on timing of meetings. John, over
Yeah.
to you.
Thank you, Chair. This is just a follow-up from, again, the discussion we had at the last meeting about trying to put something in place to start surveying members on what their preferences were. Clearly, we've discussed this issue before, made a recommendation to full council, and the recommendation accepted at full council was to delay the decision on the start time of full council meetings for 12 months until newer members are more experienced in the role to make an informed decision. And other committees are free to start meetings at their preference, obviously depending on what suits the members of each individual committee. So I just put together sort of a timetable on how we can look at leading this into June 2023, which will be the 12-month period elapses. So I put in front of you today some template questions that we can survey members. So feel free to amend, add, delete those however you feel, and change it to whatever's going to get you the information that you need to make an informed decision. We'll do that through February, bring it back to the next meeting in March to agree what our recommendation to council is going to be. And then we've got a bit of a delay until June council then, but the next meeting of Democratic Services would be in June 23 as well. So it'll be a bit too close to the council agenda anyway to line up all those bits. So the questions are attached at the appendix, and over to members if you're happy with the timetable and any feedback on those questions, please.
Okay, thank you, John. There's probably a good time to be discussing this after the last council meeting, which lasted over 6 hours. So if we started at 6 o'clock, it'd be a really nice late finish, wouldn't it, really? But I'm not trying to sway the meeting at all, but let's go over towards some views from members of the committee then. Councillor Brown.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think particularly county council is probably better to keep it at the 2 p.m. start, because anybody who's working, I mean, obviously it's possible for them just to still work in the mornings, but the length of the county council meetings are such that if you had it starting at 5 o'clock, we could be there to nearly midnight. So I think the timings of the meetings are good. Looking at the questions at the end of this report, it says something like, do you prefer to attend meetings remotely or in person? Well, I don't think that's an either or question, because I think for short meetings, it's easy enough to attend remotely, but I wouldn't like to attend a council meeting remotely, because it's just far too long to be looking at the screen, I think, because obviously you have to be visible at all times as well. So it's easier when you're actually in a meeting, and then there are some people who prefer to attend in person in any event. So I think that question needs to be modified a bit, because I like the option of having both remote attendance or attending in person, but also it's to do with the length of the meeting as well. So I think perhaps the questions could take that into account and be framed in a slightly different way. Thank you.
Okay. So the answer is to the last question, it depends, is it? Okay.
Well, yeah, it depends on the type of meeting and the length of it, really. Yeah.
Councillor Jones.
Muted.
I think Councillor Watts was before me, actually, and perhaps even Ben. I think I came in last.
All right, I was just going by the order on my screen here. Okay, right.
Sorry.
Right, we haven't got a hand raise. Well, we've got the hand raising one, but we haven't got the order showing on my
I
screen.
don't mind, whatever.
No, Penny,
Right, okay, then go on then, Penny.
Okay,
You've got the
it's just
floor.
a quick one. It's about the questions, really, which are great, but I think there should be some space for a comment. For instance, question 5, are there any days or times particularly problematic to you? And if so, what are those days and times? And would remote help in those circumstances? The thing is, no, they wouldn't for me for a Wednesday, for instance, because of always a certain meeting that goes on Wednesdays, but at least twice a month and sometimes 3 times. So I would like to explain that, obviously remote wouldn't help in those circumstances. So all I'm saying is, John, perhaps a room for a comment somewhere, underneath those questions that are, don't just tick box. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thanks, Penny.
Okay.
They'll be built in anyway. The ones where
Yeah.
you'll have a defined answer are the ones above it where I've tried to sort of, rather than have a comment box necessarily.
Yeah, but just an explanation. Okay, thanks.
Put structure around the information you get back to make a proper decision.
Yes, yeah.
That can blur the recommendation you want to put back, but the other ones will put comment boxes in, no problem.
Yeah, that's the thing. Thank you. Okay,
Thank you, Penny. We'll go on to the order now. We've got a timing of meetings list, so we'll go to Councillor Buckler next then.
Actually, I think I'm last in the line, but I'll just, mine's not very long. I'd like to say that I think it's very important that the full council meetings are during the day, and 2 seems an eminently sensible time. So I'm all for sticking to that. What I'd like to sort of find out really is there a structure that we have to have a percentage of people in chamber for full council meetings and for committee meetings? Do we have, does it matter?
Not anymore, no.
Right.
It used to be that we used to have to have so many people in attendance as a minimum. But since the legislation came in to fully implement remote attendance, no, we can just have fully remote meetings.
I mean, is it helpful to ask members how they feel about these remote attendances of meetings? How helpful it is. I mean, I think we all could say we get a lot from, if you're there in person, because you can sort of gauge things much more. But, do you think it detracts? Is it an idea to have a question like that?
Yeah, can build that in, not a problem.
Okay, that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Strong.
Yeah, I think perhaps we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves if we are suggesting times of meetings in our meeting today. That surely should wait until after the questionnaire. After all, we don't like to make decisions before reviews are complete, do we? So let's wait for the questionnaire, and on that, I think we need to give a lot of weight to answers to question 5 about what are the problem times a day. For some people, it might just be a matter of simple convenience. They might want to get home and watch Countdown, or after last week, Silent Witness probably at 9 o'clock. For others, it's a crucial thing. Not everybody has got an understanding employer who will let them off work for the afternoon. Childcare and other care responsibilities, I think, should take a lot of weight. Having said that, I think we're on an absolute loser. We're not going to be able to find a way that it's suitable to everybody. Whether that means you should have some sort of rotating system, I don't know. But let's wait for a review and see what comes up from that.
Okay, thank you. I'm impressed with your knowledge of timings for television programmes, Peter. Right, I'll go along my screen now. Councillor Watts.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of agree with Peter. We're getting ahead of ourselves. But I mean, the idea that we have, look, so I know that some people are late to the discussion here. And I mean, God, we've had this conversation about remote access to meetings since COVID or during COVID. I mean, we've talked the hind legs off it. And I say that with respect to the newer member there. But the reason why it's in place is to allow for greater flexibility. So it's not just about time. So people do work. Some people work at school. They manage to kind of, or they manage to have conversations with their boss if they're at work, so they can go into a quiet room and attend the meeting, whatever meeting it is. I mean, my personal circumstances limit me because I care for my mother, and then I also have to do a school run. So ideally for me, it would be great if I could do it after school run in the morning. I could do it then before school run in the evening, and then on late afternoon, and then avoid twilight, which, if you're looking after somebody in my specific circumstances with dementia, twilight is a difficult period because of what comes with that, really. So, you have to be flexible for everybody. Everybody's got children, elderly relatives, work commitments. So that's why, I think Welsh Government were pretty advanced, really, by saying, after we said for years that we couldn't have remote meetings. For those that have been on here long enough to remember the resistance, or we can't do it. And then we were forced to do it. And frankly, I think it's a great thing. And the other thing is well, I will say, when you're in a meeting, we tend not to row so much. We're a lot more polite on the internet.
Right. Thank you, Alan. Councillor Callard.
Thank you. I just kind of, I guess, echo a little bit of what Armand said there, which is that, the most important thing is that we are as inclusive as possible. And if that means people attending remotely, then that's a great thing. We need to make it as easy as possible for every councillor to be able to take part, in the process for which they are elected. I know some members have got caring responsibilities, just like Armand said, be that for elderly relatives or for younger children. And I think as part of the consultation, it may be worth having a question to say, do you have any specific caring requirements? Because it's one, like, I do think it's, we need to be able to weight the responses in terms of, if somebody doesn't want the evening because they don't want to miss Hollyoaks, that's one thing. But if somebody can't do the evening because they need to care for someone, then that's a completely different, that's a completely different scenario. So we need to be able to take things like that into account and kind of weigh up people's preferences and the reasons behind them. And in terms of how it matches with a working day, I do think, and I know I'm jumping the gun here a little bit, but I probably will never come back to this committee, so I'm just gonna have my two pennies while I'm here.
You do that.
Is that 2 p.m. is kind of, it's neither the start of the afternoon, nor the start of the evening, nor the start of the morning. So it cuts across, like we lost our afternoon and our evening on Thursday. If we had a 9:30 start in the morning, we could have a break for lunch if we went on. We'd be done by 2. I must admit, I do agree with other councillors when they say an evening meeting would be tricky, because I was absolutely exhausted at the end of Thursday, and I'm sure I wasn't alone. And if we had started at 5 or 6 p.m, it would have been really, really tough. So, but yeah, having in the middle of the day, if the argument is that you need half a day off work in order to attend council, then you can just as easily have the morning off often as you can have the afternoon off. So, I think there is room there, to try and make sure that we can be as accommodating as possible. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bond.
Hi, thank you very much. I'd like to agree with most has been said already. So just to confirm, this is only about full council meetings, because every other, I think someone was a little bit confused earlier, that because the other meetings, the actual members of the committees or whatever can decide for themselves. That's my understanding. So this is only full council meeting, right. This yes. Discussion. Totally agree with the weighting, really feel strongly about that, because I have less pressures on myself and really wouldn't know how to put this, because I would put whatever you want to do, whatever anyone wants to, I would try and fit in with the likes of people who have caring or young children or work or pressures, because I'm a little bit more flexible. So I'd find it difficult to, and it wouldn't be right for me to be stipulating things, because I'd be one of the, not that I watch Hollyoaks, but I'd be one of those that would rather have my evenings to go and do some fitness or something. Anyway, so I do agree with the weighting, and I'd like that to be to be transparent when we come to look at the results that come in. and how we do look at it. And the other thing I wanted, I perhaps ought to look in the constitution because I haven't. Why? Because it caught me unawares the 6 weekly council meetings, because I assumed it was third Thursday every month, and so I looked at my diary and then I got caught out on one, so particularly coming up soon. So just wondered why it's 6 weekly. Has it always been in the constitution? And please, can we be transparent when we see the results and the cross section without obviously in personal information being shared, I guess. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Brown, did you want to come back? Sorry, who was that?
Yeah, I was actually just going to reinforce the point that Councillor Bond has just made. I wasn't quite clear from looking at the questions that they did relate to the county council as opposed to other meetings, you know, particularly the questions that aren't boxed. So I think it's important that that's made clear, you know, on it, because as Councillor Bond has said, we tend to agree those within the committees themselves. I mean, normally on the same day, but you know, possibly a time alteration on that particular day. And I don't think the later questions actually make that clear, because otherwise people might be answering in relation to committees in general as opposed to the county council meeting itself.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Watts, did you want to come back in?
Chair, if I may, sorry if I may, Chair, I've got to go now. Obviously, countdown's on in a minute, so no, I'm joking. I've got to go to, I've got to nip out, so I'm going to have to leave the meeting, so apologies. Ben, if you want to tick me off later, being group whip, you can if you want. I'm not sure if I'm in trouble with you again. But yeah, I do apologise, Chair, to you, Ben, to everybody else. I've got to go, but thank you for your time. Bye-bye now.
Thanks for attendance. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Right, we've given the matter a bit of an airing about timing of the council meetings. We'd better wait until the results come back from the questionnaire, John, shall we?
Councillor Hughes, had to say.
Yeah, David, I just wanted to add just a few things, really. Just
sorry,
just personally, yeah, I welcome the review, obviously, and I think it covers the basics for it. So it'd be interesting to see the results of those. From my point of view, two works fine. It gives me a bit of time in the morning to go through papers, etc. But I haven't had a chance to do the night before. I'm conscious of any late ones because of officer time. Anything after 6 will be out of hours, so would be requesting officers to do, you know, working outside their normal hours. You did mention sort of councillors who are looking after sort of people with concerns. Did I not see somewhere that allowances or care allowances are available to those people if requested? I'm not sure if that's something. I'm new to the council, but if you do need to get a carer in, I think there is a package available. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole online thing really gives me a lot of flexibility. You know, I've done meetings in car parks while my daughter's playing hockey at various times as well. So I've maintained that as a great option. That's about all I've got to say, really. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Councillor Bond?
Yes, thank you very much. Could John just repeat back to us what he's picked up from this discussion? There's been a couple of suggestions by people. I just wondered if they've been picked up and going to be run with. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So yes, full council is every 6 weeks. So we don't have a full council monthly. It's always been that way. And if there is urgent business, then obviously we bring extraordinary full council meetings, etc. in during that time if it's needed. I've picked up, obviously we want to look at the weighting on question 5 and how we display that information, and I think that's why I've worded it that way as well. Is I'm not asking for what the issue is, but what are the times that are actually just going to cause you problems, and let us know what those times are. We don't need to get into the details of that and whether someone's confident in sharing that information with us or not. We just need to know when it's going to cause them a problem, which was why I left it at that. So does that cover the caring question, that Councillor Callard wanted added in as well, or would you like something separate to that around caring responsibilities as well as just what dates are going to and times are going to cause an issue?
Yeah, if I can come back in on that, I would just say,
Certainly,
yeah,
yes.
I do think it's important to say, do you have specific caring responsibilities? And you can just say yes or no. Rather than any time to go and do, I play hockey on a Thursday or on a Tuesday or whenever it might be. I think those, I do think it's important to differentiate from that. And like, if I may, Chair, I'd just like to pick up on something from the chat that Rachel Buckler asked. Does an employee have a duty to give people time off for full council meetings? And I can see that Penny Jones said yes. Well, I can say that is not true. An employer does not. An employer has a legal right to consider time off requests. They do not have a legal right to give you time off. I speak as someone, who's been through this with my employer, and and it makes perfect sense, because if you are a surgeon in the middle of surgery, you're not very well able to say, I'm sorry, I need the afternoon off to go and do full counsel, or a prison officer or whatever. So while they are obliged to consider, they are not obliged to give you the time off.
Okay, thank you.
Can I come back in on that, Chair, quickly?
Certainly, yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, Ben, that's totally different to what I was told and what we encountered, and I worked for education. You don't accept the post unless you feel that, if you're a surgeon doing operations, then obviously you cannot be a counsellor. So that's a little bit facetious. But the other thing is, you talk to your employer beforehand, and I think they're supposed to give you time off for 2 meetings a month. Now, that won't always be convenient. I totally agree with that. But on the whole, they are expected to give you that time off. So I think it's something that it should be worked out perhaps before you go for election. But certainly, I know that most employers will allow you to have full counsel.
I mean, sorry, I don't want to get into debate, but John, I wonder if, as part of this meeting, you could share with all members the legal position in the law on that, because it is clear, and rather than us go around, he said, she said about what the legal position is on that, it's in statute, so we should be able to clear that up.
Yeah, and I can tell you the answer's as clear as mud.
Yes.
Strikes me you're right.
So we're both right. Yes.
So the type of organisation you're working for, is it a private or is it a public organisation, for example? If it's public, then Welsh Government have been exploring mandating time off, but as far as I know, there's nothing in legislation that mandates a councillor to be allowed time off to participate in meetings. It is something that's being explored, but it's not in place yet. But again, there's that grey area between private companies and public and everything else. So it really depends on the individual councillor's circumstances, who they're working for, and what their policies are. But there's nothing in legislation that says you're entitled to X.
Okay, thank you, John. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Just a suggestion. Should we use this opportunity to canvass views on the optimal length of council meetings? From my perspective, it's not so much the timing of the meetings that are challenging, it's the inconsistency of the length of council meetings. It's a reasonable assumption to make that a 2 p.m. meeting might be done by 5 p.m., 6 p.m., but invariably they over 7, occasionally 8, and even later. So might we ask council members, council colleagues, for their thoughts on the optimal length of a council meeting, and whether indeed they would welcome time limits on speaking opportunities and interventions in plenary.
Okay, thank you. Another question. We're going on to 6 pages of A4 now for this question, aren't we? Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Yes, thank you. I think all of the questions don't actually make it clear that they are about the county council meeting as opposed to other meetings, because if you look through it, basically it goes. The first question makes it clear that it's a full council meeting, but 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 don't, and I think. It will be more clear if we do a survey specifically and actually include the words full council meeting in all of those questions, which I think was the point that myself and Councillor Bond were making, because of the fact that the other meetings we did agree that would be decided internally with the members of that particular committee, because otherwise you'll get a mixed bag of responses and we won't be quite clear as to which committee meeting that we're actually talking about. So I think it's just a question of looking at, for example, on question 2, what time in the morning is most suitable for you? Now it doesn't make that clear whether that's for a county council meeting. What time in the afternoon is most suitable for you for a county council meeting? What time in the evening is most suitable for you for a county council meeting? Are there any days or times that are particularly problematic for you to attend a county council meeting, etc.?
Can I just short circuit everything and ask John to put the heading on there that it refers solely to council meetings, John?
Yeah, I was going to say, it won't just go off as the survey. It'll have a covering email which sets out those recommendations that are further up in the report as well, and highlight that we are only dealing with full council. It's not just going out as that survey, but I'll add full council into all the questions as well, just so we're clear.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Bond.
Thank you. So I was just going to say the same things actually. So if you could actually on the survey, 3.2 first point about each committee can then recommend, if you put that at the top and say, as each committee can do their own, make their own decisions, but for county council, what would be your preferences? These questions about county council, then it goes on to it. That would make sense. And I think council, I'm not sure in the room, I'm sorry, said about benefits of being online. I think that would be a good question to ask. And the only other thing I was going to say was there are time limits. The other thing was there are time limits on inputs to council currently, and from when I worked, it was we could have time off for county council responsibilities or town council, but it was the specifics of when the work versus workload which were the issue. We was very frowned upon if we went when there was a high high priority issue going on at work at the time. So it's the time off is not and in question, it's the when as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So please add
sorry.
Sorry, could you please then add the benefits of the online? I think a councillor in the room said that.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah, and if you because it's going to stand alone, because not everybody looks at the email as well as the form. So if you put standalone at the top, you say for the meetings it's decided by the members, but for county council, please tell us your views. And these are the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back to Councillor Davies' point about could we put a time limit on full council meetings? Nice in theory, but I don't know how we would do that. I mean, at what point you're going to say, sorry, agenda's full, no more, or that's it, no members' questions, we've run out of time. I think that would be problematic. What we could do, because I'm sure that everybody's done the same as me and been through the council standing orders with a highlighter. You've all done that. But perhaps like a little reminder to councillors around things like number of contributions, time limits on speaking, just to clarify that, there are the procedures in place to try to keep things tight. That might be helpful.
And avoid repetition, yes. Yeah.
And avoid repetition.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Back on the list now, Councillor Marion Howells, yes, yeah.
No, not me. No, that's an old one, I think.
Peter Strong, you've appeared again on my list, so.
Yeah, okay. I think the discussion has highlighted how very difficult it's going to be to come up with a perfect solution. I just want to say really that we need to stick to a basic principle of being as inclusive as we possibly can. I mean, some things we will be able to do, some things we won't, but we'll try to do them if we possibly can. On the point of employers, I think even when there is some sort of right to have time off, some employers can make life very, very difficult for you even when they're giving you your rights, promotion opportunities and all sorts of things like that. So, we do need to take into account the sort of real situation as well as the statutory situation. But, let's stick to the general principle, be inclusive as we can, do what we can, but recognise that we're not going to have a perfect solution.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other contribution now about timings of meetings? I think we've been around the bush a few times, and no doubt we'll discuss it further after the questionnaire has been finalised and circulated. Councillor Bond, you're muted. Sorry, we didn't hear that because you're muted. Here we are.
Yeah. Sorry, something else that's been discussed that might have been missed about the opportunity of changing or some alternating. I know that was only whether we then, once the results come in and we look at and there's two obvious options, and then we say we alternate between, whether we wait for the results or we ask at the time, and you add it to that questionnaire, whether if it could be alternated to meet most people's needs. Would that be an option? I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, that can be considered when the results come in, can't they?
I'll add it into. I think as much information as we can get to make an informed decision, the better it'll be, really. And I can talk to that because we've done that in the past as well, alternated timings. But let's gather as many thoughts as possible.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, thank you for every contribution there. Let's move on then to the next item, which is the poster. And John will lead us on this one. And my only question is, why all the long faces, really? But
yeah, unfortunately, that's the formatting of the agenda. So
lots of long meetings. That's why we're so long-faced.
I've just put into the chat for everybody a properly formatted one, so you can see it. But this just follows on again from discussions we had at the last meeting around officers knowing who the new councillors are, because we've had so many changes. So we've designed this sheet with the comms team. There's a Welsh version of it as well. We'll be circulating that around to all staff and getting it put up in the hubs and area offices. And yeah, it's just in response to some of those questions that we raised last time. I'm conscious as well, still on my to-do list for members is to arrange that Q&A sort of session or the meet and greet session online with chief officers and service managers that we were looking to implement. With the budget conversations that's been going on over the recent week with officers, it's just not been an opportune time to sort of discuss that option and put it in place. But it's still on my to-do list, and I'll look to get that set up as well at a convenient time. So just any comments really on that, and if you're happy with that.
Okay, thank you, John, and thank you for the photograph. I wasn't having a dig, by the way. It was just trying to raise the mood slightly. Any comments? Councillor Davis.
Very minor comment. Should we not include contact details for each councillor?
The reason we don't do that is at the election, councillors had the opportunity to remove the contact details from the public website if they wanted to. The email.
Our principal Monmouthshire email address is in the public domain, is it not? It just
seems they're all on the website.
But I'm thinking of Joe Bloggs, who's time poor, who's not going to Google necessarily his individual councillor. I mean, seeing as we're producing this document, should we just not add an email address under each image? It seems like a pretty small ask and a perfectly sensible ask. I welcome views from other members.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Davies. Councillor Bond.
I was just going to say the same thing, exactly the same thing. Maybe there's a pattern you can put your councillors input their name and then the generic bit. If you can't fit it in again underneath everybody's pictures, I mean, if everybody's email address follows their name, of course.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Make it easy. But totally agree what Tom's just said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Peter Strong, sorry, we've
no objection to putting the email addresses on. I think I might have misunderstood the purpose of the poster. I originally thought it was for members of the public to see, where it's actually for MCC employees and officers.
Everybody.
Yeah, and the MCC officers would know how the email addresses work anyway, but I've no objection to that going on. I didn't thought it was for the public. I mean, it does raise a wider issue of concern to me of how we communicate with the public, and I think perhaps we could put that somewhere on a forward work programme, because I mean you mentioned, for example, John, £25,000 for a mail shot. Yeah, how many people do our actual social media pages reach? I mean, I had a case of a fairly well-informed resident who didn't know about the change of bin collection days. Yeah, if he didn't know, a lot of other people didn't know. So these are enormous problems that I think are worth chucking around a bit and seeing if we can do anything to maximise our contact. You know, I think we'll find it with the budget meetings this week. But a lot of people would have come who didn't know about them. Yeah,
we've got we have to produce a public participation strategy that the comms team is looking at, and that's how specifically members of the public will engage with the council in its decision-making processes. They're working on that now alongside the cabinet member, and they'll bring it to the committee once they've.
Yeah, we could have some information about what we're doing. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Strong. Councillor Howells?
Yeah, I was just going to say, could we design it so that when you click on the face or whatever, it just takes you to the contact details rather than putting them up there? I guess putting somebody's web email address in there would be quite long, wouldn't it, to get it all underneath there?
It could be. We could look to do it, a digital one and a paper one. I think this was more designed as well.
Oh, for a paper.
Be in the hub, but
can I just clarify? So the members of the public will be able to see it also. So it's for both, really.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, at the election we had so many new councillors, more than we've ever had in the past, and new faces. Councillor Watts had an issue at the last meeting with someone wasn't sure who he was. We used to do this in the past, and I mean, I even had it up on my desk, I think, when I first started with the council, just so I could know who the councillors were. And as we're all remote and we're not based in one building, it's handy to see the face alongside just a name, which sometimes
of course it is.
They only know. So it's designed for both. Yeah.
Good. Okay, I just wanted to sort of clarify.
Just remind staff not to stick pins into the face.
You saw my copy.
They must not be attached to the dartboard in the pub.
Another comment, Chair, if I may, having looked again at the document, should we also reference official roles held by non-cabinet members? So I note, for example, all cabinet members are explicitly name-checked, but for example, the leader of the official opposition, Richard John, for example, is not referenced as the Conservative group leader, nor is the independent group leader. I mean, you know, where do you draw the line? Do you want to include all committee chairs as well? But I do wonder whether, in the interest of parity and consistent application across members, that we should, where official duties are held by individual members, those duties, those titles should be explicitly referenced. I pose a question. I don't have any firm views necessarily.
Can I come in on that, please, Chair? I'm just thinking that they could be temporary.
Well, so can cabinet members.
No disrespect to Richard John. I wasn't saying that. I'm just meaning of any particular committee member or whatever. It could be temporary, so it's probably not a good idea, possibly.
Take quickly.
Yeah. Or it could be till the next AGM or whatever, couldn't it? And then you'd have to put out another poster.
Councillor Jones.
Sorry.
Hi. I just going to say, yes, I totally agree about the committee members. You know, they change annually, maybe anyway. I mean, there's a chance to, but group leaders, I totally agree with Thomas. You know, that's an important position. So I think group leaders for the independent and for the Conservatives should definitely be there, because that's unlikely to change.
Okay. Councillor Buckler, have you?
Yes, it was just thank you, Chair. It was just to say, actually, that, you know, the fact that, you know, it might be temporary or not, I think, you know, we have to sort of go with what is now. And I agree that the, you know, leader of the opposition and the independent should be noted. People know, I think generally the public in Monmouthshire know far less about the workings of the council than we imagine they do. We're sort of being steeped in it, but so few people actually really know what goes on. So a little heads up would be good.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments then, please? If that is the case, then that brings us to the last item on the agenda, which is the date of the next meeting, which is the 20th of March. So we can look forward to that, and passage of time and keeping warm in the meantime, and no snow, and we'll be ready for a tour around the county just after that date. And I'm sure we'll all enjoy it with sweets and songs, as was mentioned earlier on in the meeting. Thank you for your attendance, and we look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. Thank you very much indeed. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Bye.